Imagine waking up one morning to a world without electricity. The lights are off, the city is silent, and the power grid that once fueled modern life has suddenly stopped. No traffic signals, no glowing office towers, no humming data centers. For a moment, it feels like the entire digital world has collapsed. Yet somewhere above the Earth, thousands of small satellites continue moving in silent precision, forming a network that does not rely on the fragile web of ground infrastructure we have always depended on. This is the quiet revolution of decentralized connectivity, and it represents a new philosophy about resilience, innovation, and the future of communication. In a world where most technologies stop the moment power fails, the idea that the internet could continue operating during a blackout sounds almost impossible. But the truth is that the future of connectivity was never meant to depend on a single system. The power grid is powerful, but it is also centralized, and centralized systems often carry a hidden weakness. When one critical component fails, the entire network can collapse like a row of falling dominoes. That vulnerability has shaped the design of many technologies for decades. But a new generation of thinkers began asking a different question. What if the system didn't depend on one place at all? What if the infrastructure was distributed across the sky, constantly moving, constantly adapting, and capable of reaching even the most remote corners of the planet? This question represents a shift in thinking that aligns with the broader mindset often associated with Elon Musk, a mindset that refuses to accept limitations simply because they have always existed. Instead of building a stronger single tower, the idea becomes building thousands of interconnected nodes that share responsibility for the entire network. The result is something powerful, a communication system that can continue functioning even when traditional networks struggle or collapse. Starlink embodies this philosophy by placing satellites in low Earth orbit, creating a web of connectivity that operates independently from many of the vulnerabilities tied to ground-based infrastructure. While traditional internet services rely on cables, regional hubs, and centralized facilities that can be disrupted by outages, disasters, or infrastructure failure, a satellite network spreads its presence across space itself. Each satellite becomes part of a living network that continuously moves across the sky, communicating with ground terminals and passing data through the constellation like a relay race of information. When local power grids fail, when storms damage infrastructure, or when entire regions go dark, the satellites above continue to orbit silently, unaffected by the chaos below. This does not mean the technology is magical, but it does mean the design philosophy is fundamentally different. Instead of concentrating power into a single vulnerable system, decentralized connectivity distributes it across thousands of points, reducing the chance that any one failure can stop the flow of information. In a world where communication has become essential to emergency response, safety, and coordination, this kind of resilience begins to look less like a luxury and more like a necessity. The deeper message hidden within this technology is not only about satellites or internet speed, but about the mindset that builds systems prepared for uncertainty. True innovation is not just about creating something new. It's about anticipating the moments when everything else might stop working and designing solutions that continue moving forward anyway. At first, the idea of internet service surviving a massive blackout sounds like something from a futuristic story. Yet the reality unfolding above our planet is far more fascinating. Thousands of satellites glide through low Earth orbit in carefully calculated paths, forming a constantly shifting constellation that works together as one intelligent network. While cities below may struggle with broken power lines, overloaded transformers, or entire regional outages, this orbital system continues to operate quietly, almost untouched by the chaos beneath it. The secret lies in decentralization, a concept that changes the entire philosophy of how technology should be built. Traditional internet infrastructure depends on long chains of physical connections, such as underground cables, local distribution hubs, and regional data centers. When any one of those links fails during a blackout or disaster, the service often disappears instantly. The signal cannot travel if the pathway collapses. But a decentralized satellite system approaches the challenge from a completely different direction. Instead of relying on one path, It creates thousands of pathways that move dynamically through space. Information jumps from satellite to satellite before reaching a ground terminal. And because these satellites are constantly orbiting the Earth, the network is always adapting. Even if one connection becomes unavailable, another path can quickly take its place. This dynamic structure is one reason the technology remains functional during situations that would cripple traditional networks. Yet the real suspense of this story appears when we imagine a global scenario where power systems fail on a massive scale. Picture entire cities losing electricity at the same time. Communication towers shut down, routers go dark, and fiber networks fall silent. In those moments, people rely on information more than ever. Emergency teams need coordination. Families need communication. Governments need real-time data. Without connectivity, confusion spreads faster than any storm. The question then becomes whether any system can continue operating when everything else collapses. This is where the resilience of satellite-based connectivity begins to reveal its true importance. Starlink user terminals can operate with alternative power sources, such as batteries, generators, or solar energy, meaning that even when the traditional grid disappears, individuals can still maintain a connection to the orbital network. Above them, the satellites continue their synchronized motion, powered by solar arrays and guided by sophisticated software that keeps the constellation functioning as a unified structure. This combination of independent energy and decentralized infrastructure creates a communication lifeline that remains active when ground systems struggle. The deeper meaning of this design reflects a broader philosophy often associated with Elon Musk, a belief that humanity must build systems that are not only advanced, but also resilient enough to withstand unexpected challenges. The goal is not simply to provide fast internet. It is to create a network that can support people when conditions become unpredictable. In moments of crisis, resilience becomes the difference between isolation and coordination. The suspense lies in realizing how fragile many traditional systems truly are, and how different the future could look when technology is designed with survival in mind. Instead of depending on a single grid, a single tower, or a single connection, decentralized networks spread their strength across thousands of components working together. Each satellite becomes part of a much larger safety net surrounding the Earth. And while most people rarely think about what happens when the power goes out, this silent infrastructure above the clouds continues to move, ready to deliver connection even when the world below goes dark. When we step back and look at the bigger picture, the story of resilient connectivity becomes more than just a discussion about satellites or internet technology. It becomes a lesson about how humanity prepares for the unexpected. For generations, progress was measured by speed, convenience, and expansion. Cities grew brighter, networks grew faster, and digital systems became deeply woven into everyday life. Yet the modern world also revealed a quiet vulnerability. Many of the systems we rely on every day are built around centralized structures that work perfectly until the moment they do not. A single point of failure can ripple outward, disrupting communication, transportation, healthcare, and emergency coordination. In that fragile moment, the real value of resilience begins to reveal itself. Technologies designed to operate independently from fragile infrastructure suddenly become far more important than anyone once imagined. Starlink represents one example of this new philosophy, where the goal is not simply to deliver internet access, but to ensure that connection can survive even when traditional systems falter. Instead of depending entirely on cables buried beneath the ground or towers anchored to one location, the network spreads its architecture across the sky itself. Satellites orbit the Earth continuously, creating a dynamic grid of communication pathways that shift and adapt in real time. Down below, user terminals connect directly to this orbital web, meaning that the signal does not need to travel through a long chain of vulnerable infrastructure before reaching its destination. The idea is simple but powerful. Distribute the system so widely that no single failure can stop it. This philosophy echoes the forward-thinking mindset often associated with Elon Musk, where innovation is not only about pushing technological limits, but also about preparing civilization for moments of disruption. When natural disasters strike, when infrastructure fails, or when entire regions experience blackouts, resilient systems become lifelines that keep people informed and connected. Communication allows emergency responders to coordinate rescue efforts, families to locate one another, and communities to stay aware of changing conditions. In those moments, connectivity becomes more than convenience. It becomes stability. What makes this concept inspiring is the realization that resilience can be designed intentionally. Engineers, scientists, and visionaries can build systems that anticipate problems before they occur. Instead of waiting for failure and then reacting, they create networks capable of continuing forward, even in the middle of uncertainty. This approach reflects a broader message about human progress itself. The future does not belong only to the fastest technology or the most powerful machines. It belongs to the systems that can endure. As the world continues to face unpredictable challenges, from extreme weather to infrastructure stress, decentralized networks show how innovation can strengthen society rather than simply accelerate it. Every satellite orbiting above the planet represents a small piece of that larger vision, a reminder that resilience is not an accident, but the result of deliberate design. When people begin to understand this shift in thinking, they start to see technology differently. It becomes less about gadgets and more about preparedness, cooperation, and long-term stability. The silent constellation moving through space becomes a symbol of how human creativity can build safety nets for the modern world. And as we look toward the future, the lesson becomes clear. Systems designed with resilience will shape the next era of progress, ensuring that connection, knowledge, and communication remain alive, even when the lights on the ground fade into darkness. If you're benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.